Welcome, my brothers and my sisters. Welcome to this broadcast. Your brother from another mother will be arriving shortly to discuss all things relationship OCD, obsessive compulsiveness about romance, relationship, marriage, the future, children, families. You may be getting stressed out just hearing that. Well, if you do, then you've arrived at a great place. Ladies and gentlemen, it is your brother from another mother. I will be arriving in just a moment. We are going to discuss relationship OCD and all things romance, marriage, attraction. Do all these things mean something? Does this anxiety mean something? Should I be listening to this? Am I in denial? What's going on? I don't understand these thoughts I'm having. I don't feel that feeling. I don't feel that amazing feeling. I don't have that amazing thought. What do I do? Well, we're going to get into all those things today as I address your questions and roll up my sleeves to go where no man or woman has gone before in your life and in your journey. We're going to dig into the struggles and battles that you face today and looking forward to it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this broadcast. I am Mark DeJesus. I am your brother from another mother, bringing you insights today. We're going to get into the subject of OCD, specifically into the area of relationships and this anxious, conflicting, we feel goofy within our thoughts and in ourselves kind of battleground that many people face. I myself was deep in the swamp of this and pretty much manifested everything that I see today in fellow ROCD strugglers. If you ask Mark a question that goes like this, Mark, did you ever struggle with, and you then tell me a symptom of relationship OCD, the answer is automatically yes. Automatically yes. It's just going to be yes. Yes, yes, and yes. And it's awful, it's difficult, it's very challenging. So I pray today in this part 6, we'll be able to get more and more into the questions that you have. I've got quite a stack of them, so many that I dedicated a episode just for them. And am working on the final stages, hopefully to releasing a book spring at the latest, on a book on relationship OCD. I felt like I wanted to spend some dedicated time to flesh it out a little bit more as far as what that battleground looks like and some mindsets that you can be aware of. Be sure, though, because no matter what you read or get from me, if you have obsessive-compulsive battlegrounds, doesn't matter the topic or the category it goes into, you need to go through the OCD healing journey. You need to understand what you're really dealing with, help your journey to relate to your thoughts in a renewed way, get to the areas that really need help and equipping, and learn to stop living in the hamster wheel that we often get caught into. So, looking forward to addressing those questions today when it comes to relationships, relationship OCD. I've got many different voices. I've got a buzzer. I think I may use it today when I hear certain words. I give them buzzers. They're words I don't like. So you may hear that one a few times today, especially when people say the word partner. I have a few that might get sent off. But speaking of voices, what we'll do is we'll introduce relationship OCD, and I'll ask AI what AI has to say about what relationship OCD is.
ROCD is a subtype of obsessive-compulsive disorder where intrusive, unwanted thoughts and compulsive behaviors center around one's romantic relationship. These thoughts often have doubts, fears, and anxieties about the relationship or partner, even if there's no real basis for them. Obsessive thoughts, doubting love for your partner, constantly analyzing your partner, flaws and imperfections, questioning if you're truly compatible or meant to be, comparing your relationship to others, fear of making the wrong decision or being with the wrong person.
I got to get rid of that voice. I can't do the whole thing with this. You know, this is interesting, though, because in looking at AI, what it says, the compulsive behaviors that take place. I read the obsessions there. Constant reassurance, seeking, repeatedly checking your feelings and analyzing the other person's actions, mentally reviewing past interactions or evidence of love or incompatibility, avoiding situations that trigger your obsessions, engaging in excessive research or seeking information. And so I'm not going to get into some of the fundamental areas when I talk about relationship OCD. You need to go back to my part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need to go to, I have a dedicated page for relationship OCD. If you go to my topics page, if you go to markdesus.com and click on topics at the top, that's going to take you to a list of topics. And there's now its own page, relationship OCD. You can go there and check that out. So I'm not gonna get into all the fundamental understanding, but I thought it's interesting here what it says, that it can create a strain on the relationship, increase conflict and arguments coming out of this disturbance. It certainly creates a lot of interference because you have to overtalk things, or you're over figuring it out. You're not present in the relationship. You're unable to settle and just grow together. A decreased intimacy, emotional connection. I even see this in married folks that have relationship OCD struggles, where physical, emotional, even sexual intimacy becomes a problem and a struggle, and all the obsessive-compulsive aspects seek to get in the way of that. Difficulty communicating, opening honestly, even feelings of resentment and frustration. And there's a lot of ruminating and spinning, a lot of different scenarios you're trying to work through in your mind to get yourself into a place of feeling settled. Rumination is one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to an obsessive-compulsive battleground. So you're going to have to be aware of this. And many of the questions that coming in, we're going to get into a lot of attraction. There's a lot of questions about attraction. Am I attractive? Am I attractive enough? Is this person, am I really attracted to this person? Oh, wait, I don't know, their feature, this and that. There's a lot of fussing going on over physical features and compatibility. And I think that modern culture doesn't help it, because there's a lot of emphasis on a certain picture of what beauty should be. Instagram and the modern social media has not helped this. I'm not going to blame that as the cause, because when you're obsessive compulsive, whether it's now or 100 years ago, you're going to have these kind of fussy tendencies. But it doesn't help. It adds on more baggage to our compulsivity. So I'm going to get into these questions. You can feel free to post super chats, and I will keep an eye out for the super chats. And if you want to know how to do that, down at the bottom, there's, I think it's either the plus sign or there's a picture of a dollar bill or something like that. You can do it in there. If you'd like to send one in, you can do that as well too. Go to markdesus.com/questions. I will keep an eye on it during the broadcast. I got plenty to cover here. But I will keep an eye on it. If it's something I can address quickly, I may just throw it right into the batch of questions I have here. Let me start off with addressing a question that I'm going to title, I Feel Nothing. Am I just settling? And many are OCDers because of their feelings of discontent or their lack of they don't feel content. They don't feel, they're wondering if they're just being complacent, compromising, or if they're just settling their standards. It's a very, very common thing that they spin and ruminate on. So I'm going to dive into a question that begins to look at this and cover this. Hopefully I won't have to hit this pad too many times. And those of you that are new to my broadcast, I developed that because many people, when they write, they utilize the term partner. And I encourage my brothers and sisters to get a little bit more clear about where the relationship is at, because this partner, this generic kind of term, that people are using. And I like to encourage people, when you're in your dating journey, have a little bit more clarity. Not that you got to figure out, is this the one I'm going to marry by the first date? Have a little sense of boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance. husband, wife, you know, because I find that our terminology often becomes a way that we avoid. And that's one of them. So I throw the foghorn at that. Happy New Year to you and Melissa. You addressed my 6-year relationship last year. Okay. Now, just so you know, I don't remember what I said. I don't remember your circumstance. So keep that in mind. I'm hoping to maybe get some feedback on what I've been through since my ROCD. I used to wake up with gut-wrenching anxiety every day, every single day, sometime between October 2024 and December 2024. I realized I hadn't felt that knot in my stomach. However, now I struggle to feel anything at all, which is often a common thing that OCDers go through. You hit a stage that I call the Doldrums. And Doldrums is a nautical term. It's an area in the ocean where the winds stop and the boat, old boats with sails. Now today we have boats with motors, so this isn't really as much of a factor. But boats with sails require the movement of wind to really give the boat its momentum to move it across the ocean or even in a lake. But there's a term in the ocean that they would call the Doldrums, where the wind isn't blowing and it would create this very, very strange stillness. And it would create that inability to move forward. And for many OCDers, they develop that. Now, it could be a number of things. One is you're moving through your anxiety and you're actually making some improvement. And now that the thoughts are not as fearful anymore, you start to come through the obsessions, and the next stage is often the doldrums. And many people will go, oh, it's depression. I'm having depression. Maybe true. You may have had depression there for a long time. Many OCDers also battle with depression. One of the primary reasons is because they have a perfectionistic influence in their life. And many perfectionists have an underlying depression. And they do everything in their power to run from that depression. They keep themselves busy. They follow the rules. They chase the fires in their life. They chase after things that don't feel right. They spend their life performing and going after things constantly. Meanwhile, there's kind of an emptiness, a sense of lowness, or even you could call depression that's there. And they do everything they can to avoid it because they have a lot of shame that they're even having that struggle. So many of them say, Mark, I'm struggling with depression. But then when you look at their journey, dig a little bit, this has kind of been here for a while, hasn't it? So that's something to keep in mind, but you may be in the doldrum stage. So you enter this state of your feelings are kind of numb. And a lot of that comes out of you've been chasing compulsive behavior is exhausting, ladies and gentlemen. Most of you, when you write to me, you tell me this. It's exhausting. It is so tiring to, well, I don't know how I feel. What does everything think? What does this say? What if this thing? That's your nervous system gets tapped out. So if you start doing a little exposure therapy or you stop feeding those compulsions, you can enter in the stage of going, I feel like I'm crashing. I feel like I'm numb. And what you're needing to do is recalibrate your emotional life. That like this, and many obsessors go, I feel numb. That means I don't love God. It means I'm not saved. It's like, stop catastrophizing yourself all the time. ROCDers, what they do is they go, see, this shows I'm not in love. And your definition of love and what love should be and feel like is distorted. All relationship OCDers have a distortion of what love is, what it's supposed to feel like, what they're supposed to feel, and what that ongoing feeling should be. And so there's a lot of recalibrating that's needed. And we just got into 2 sentences in your question. You struggle to feel anything at all. My therapy has been helping to an extent. On the days I feel okay mentally and emotionally, I can ignore the thoughts. Am I settling? And that's one of the thoughts that rises up. That's a yeah, but what if kind of. Do I love my boyfriend? I know you. There you did. You wrote it. I know you hate the partner cop out. Good. You call him your boyfriend. Okay, at least puts it into play. And you've been in this for 6 years. So it is time to go, what are we going to do here? And anyways, you say, I can know the thoughts. Am I just choosing to be with him? It's interesting that's a negative question. because the power of love is making a decision. I choose to love you, and you continue to choose to love. All love is a choice and a decision. Yes, I know romance is a part of it, being drawn to somebody, attracted to somebody, but when you grow in love, you choose to grow in love. God made a decision to love us. God so loved the world, he gave, and he set out how love is a decision followed by action, and the action is in conjunction with that decision. So it's interesting how you asking the question, am I just choosing to be in love with him? It tells me your guiding system of what love should look like, that you should be pulled into. We've been taught that you should be pulled into loving someone. And so then when that pull is not there, then we start to question everything. Even whether you're obsessive or not, we have this in culture and society. You start questioning your emotions, questioning your feelings, questioning, is this right? And what's the top reason people give in divorce is incompatibility. I just wasn't compatible. So it pushes us down a path that keeps us away from what love really is. It's a decision to love and grow in what love means. And yes, I understand there's an initial drawing. So you in your 6-year relationship, I don't see in here where someone held a gun to your head. I don't see where your parents grabbed you by the throat and said, you are going to be with this man. Okay. So no one was out of threat terrorizing you to be in this relationship. But yet we feel the need for this pull to keep us going. And if we don't feel that feeling, then something is terribly wrong. So anyway, you said, I just got insurance and plan to get my hormone levels checked out. I'm assuming you mean you got insurance so you can go get medical testing done. Yeah, you may find you have some hormone levels that are off that may be contributing to depression. You may have some depression going on. Your fight or flight may also be tapped out too. So you say, I'm afraid I'll get the results back and everything will be balanced. Okay, why are you afraid of that? If it comes back and it's balanced, that's good news, which means there's thinking patterns that you're feeding that are contributing to this numbness. You're needing to recalibrate your emotions. How many of us give room for our emotions to get recalibrated? Like, hey, I feel kind of low. I don't feel super excited about this relationship. Okay, that's all right. It doesn't have to mean something. For ROCDers, they need to learn how to not have amazing over-the-top feelings, and that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a step towards maturity. Grateful but scared because I feel the dread of not being able to just exist in my life, and it feels like I'm fighting the wind if nothing is chemically is wrong. Through this journey, I realize I don't know how to be loved. Okay, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's something that is going to take some time to work out. You wrote his name. I'm going to leave it out just because I tend to leave out names. He has tried his best to be patient, present, faithful, honest, loving, and I'm so frustrated. Now, is he wanting to get married and you are the one that's kind of holding it off? Like, I don't know, I got to work through these things. I need counseling. I need therapy. Because I wonder if you were like, you know what? I need to start moving forward. Would that give him freedom to go, all right, is he waiting on you because he realizes that you're in tough space? I don't remember, when I last addressed this. You have to forgive me. So incredibly frustrated and angry at the fact that I can't be happy. You're angry that you're not happy. And that's going to make things worse. So let's make an adjustment there. Let's back off being angry at you because you're not happy right now. Can we do that? Why add more problems? It's like I'm unhappy and then I'm beating myself up for being unhappy. That now you got 2 problems. It's tough enough that you got the first problem. You're not happy. It's all right. It's all right. Join the club to many that are struggling with that sense of lack of happiness. It's all right. And a big part, if you don't know how to be loved, that's going to leave you pretty empty and pretty unfulfilled. Okay. Here's your next statement. I can't just be a woman in love. Now, you didn't write an exclamation mark. I'm adding drama to it. Because that statement just sticks out to me. I can't just be a woman in love, hopeful and in love. Why can't I just feel this amazing feeling and just be in love and just be so excited like everyone on Instagram and the people around me, and my friend Sally, she was so excited when she got married and we just couldn't wait and she was walking on clouds and I'm not walking on clouds and that means there's something desperately wrong with me. Interpretation. So it's very important that you understand how you interpret how you're feeling. And you're interpreting because you don't feel a certain thing that something is incredibly wrong with you. I feel so hopeless, feeling scared to share with friends because I fear that when they ask me questions, my anxiety makes me avoid. So they might be saying something like, are you going to get engaged? You must be so excited. And inside you go, I don't know that I feel excited. So then if you say, yes, I am, you're like, I'm faking it and I'm lying to them. I know this battle. Boy, do I know this battle. And so then, talking with other people, and it is challenging. If somebody doesn't get OCD, they don't get it and understand like what it's like, they can often give you bad feedback. Beware, especially ladies. I see this a lot with the ladies. Beware of when you're struggling with relationship OCD and you talk to someone who's married and they don't get OCD, they may give you bad feedback. Just letting you know. Because they'll say things like, if it's meant to be, it'll just work out. Or if it's like, honey, you don't have OCD issues. She does. It's a different world, right? It's like the person who says, if you just love Jesus, you won't be depressed. To the person who's a Christian who struggles with depression. It's like, psh, 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 psh.
Maybe that works for the church lady.
Okay. So just be aware of who you're getting feedback and counsel from, because they need to understand. I got terrible feedback from people. God bless them. God bless them. I hold no bitterness or animosity to them, but they gave me terrible, terrible, terrible advice and feedback. Because the Christianity is loaded with a lot of cliches. We have a lot of, if it's God, it'll just work out. If God's in it, then it'll just be easy. If God's in it, then that means everything's going to work out perfectly. If God shows you, he'll show you the one, he'll just show you and you'll just know. There's a lot of superstitious and stitious kind of things that we say. And we just wrap it with God. And listen, the people meant well. And many of those people, they were very loving to me. But they said things, like that to me. And it wasn't helpful. And actually fed my compulsive patterns of, I guess I got to get out of this relationship. Where am I? They know I was diagnosed with OCD, but somehow it still doesn't help me feel better. Like I'm still just lying to myself or something. Remember the goal of the OCD healing journey. Don't make your goal to feel better. Because there are days and times where you're not going to feel better and you're actually moving in the right direction. There's going to be days where fear increases. You're going to go through seasons where you're going to feel numb, depressed, and you're actually going in the right direction. So beware of making your goal to feel better. In the long run, if you apply the tools and precepts for healing, in the long run, you will make it. You will overcome. You will have a better life. But don't make your goal to feel better right now, because what you'll do is you'll keep avoiding things that make you uncomfortable, which is usually the fear areas, the fear factor kind of stuff. Okay, so you say, it doesn't help me feel better, like I'm just lying to myself or something. That's what OCDers feel. They're lying to themselves if they don't feed their obsession. Maybe you don't have OCD. Maybe you're just settling and you're forcing yourself. It's very common distortion. It terrifies me to think that. He and I met when I had no business dating anyone. I'd gone through a really bad breakup in 2018. In hindsight, I stayed for 6 years out of obsession, obsessed with feeling loved by him. But I also stayed because I felt connected to him in our shared artistic interests and because I saw him as a light in my life. I was enamored by the way he carried himself, sort of a bad boy with good intentions. And the way he made me feel was overwhelming in the best and worst ways. But there was also a lot of mistrust in that relationship. I stayed because of the feelings I had for him, even though the stress and insecurity were unbearable. Eventually, I left because I was exhausted. Many people with relationship OCD, when they're struggling in their current relationship, they go back to one that they had before as a reference. Well, I felt this thing about this other person. So they think, well, maybe I should go back to that other person, or I need to have that feeling. You liked a guy and you were obsessed in the addiction kind of way, not in the OCD kind of way. You were obsessed in the sense of this addict kind of pull towards him, when he's a mixture of some good but also some really bad traits, and mixed in with trust issues. So that also contributes to your calibration of what love is. So you got to just be aware of that. Eventually I left because I was exhausted. The emotional detox after leaving was the worst I think a human can go through. I felt like a literal hell. All this while I was with the new guy, trying to be in a healthy relationship while also allowing myself time to heal. After I was finally strong enough to just exist by the grace of God, I was able to start asking questions of whether I could see myself with him. Then I entered what feels like phase 2, crippling fear and anxiety. I could sit here and try to give you a bigger scope, but really I'm asking for help as I try to heal. I feel far from God, far from myself, far from my boyfriend, far from my friends. Yes. Oh, that's what OCD does. It creates an emotional disconnection. And so depending on what your pathway of OCD, where it goes to, that disconnection feeds it. So if you have salvation OCD, your feelings of disconnection to God say you're not saved, or you lost it, or you never had it to begin with, wherever your theological bent goes. And so unpardonable sin goes there. If it goes to, in ROCD, all roads lead to I'm with potentially the wrong person. And that's where that sense of separation is going to go back to, which I encourage many OCDers to get rooted in exposing the rejection mindset, because rejection is an interesting root issue that gives us a feeling of separation, disconnect, and then it gives a definition and reason why, but based on lies. And so, anyway, that's hopefully that will help support a little bit. But you got some work to do. And I wonder, are you moving forward in the relationship? Because it doesn't sound like you're moving forward. You're doing maybe a lot of therapy and stuff like that, and hoping you'll arrive at some feeling that you'll get, that then you'll finally move forward. But your fear is surrounding everything that you're looking at here. Okay, let me get into. I got a bunch of questions here. Let's see. I want to say at least 3, at least 4, yeah, all based on attraction. Let's see if we'll have a little bit of fun with this. Hey, Mark, thank you for what you're doing. Reading the OCD Healing Journey helped me to realize that was exactly what I was healing through, and helped me stop many of my compulsive cycles. When I look back at my life, I wonder, back in the 90s, when the goofiness of what I battled was manifesting, if somebody was able to say to me, hey, there's this book that I think would really help what you're going through. This guy talks about this stuff, because there was nothing of that. People today tell me, I don't hear anybody doing what you're doing, dealing with mental health, but also from a biblical perspective. Imagine 20 years ago. Imagine 30 years ago. That's where I lived. I had daily crickets as far as help. I had to learn the hard way. So anyway, I was really big into oversharing and compulsive confession of nothing, of course. I've experienced a lot of freedom from your resource and this journey. I know to let intrusive thoughts pass and that they're not me, but the fear that I feel I need help with is shutting off my fight or flight response as it is hyperactive. Okay, you don't turn off your fight or flight. So if anyone's teaching you, here's how you turn it off. That's not how things work. The fight or flight system takes time to recalibrate that this particular subject is no longer a danger. It takes practice. It takes practice when your body thinks that there's a bear jumping out of the woods running after you. Now think about that. That creates if I walked out of my office and a bear was right there, I would go from 0 to 10, or wherever I was, to 10 intensity of fight or flight. To do what? To fight for my life if I had to, or to flight to get out of there. Hopefully my first response would be flight. For some people, they go into a freeze state. They might curl into a ball, right? But from a basic standpoint, the fight or flight activity kicks in. It takes a lot of work and time and patience every time I was to walk out of my office from that point on to go, there's no bear there. I don't need to worry. My nervous system has been triggered by this. So it's not something you just turn off. It's kind of like an OCD. You're saying, how do you make these thoughts go away? You don't make them go away. You learn over time not to react to them. The volume goes down. They lose their power. That makes them go away, so to speak. And the same light, your fight or flight system needs time to recalibrate. And some of that is done through renewing of the mind, taking renewed steps, and also practices that help your physiology to recalibrate, like stillness and breathing and gentle, slow movements through life to help renew your mind and heart. Now, for OCDers, a big part of recalibrating your fight or flight system is actually facing and walking through what you get triggered by. And that's why I'm not in the business of trying to avoid triggers or to be someone who's, not triggering anyone. I trigger people every broadcast. And I'm not trying to. I'm just being myself. And people go, oh, you said this. I'll tell a story to Melissa. And I say, oh, you triggered this by this phrase you said. You learn every day what triggers people. So it's like, yeah, you kind of need those things, though, so that you move forward to them and face the fear and develop a sense of confidence. My daughter was starting school this week, and there's anxious and who I'm going to meet and stuff that happens. And when she came home, she had such great reports of what happened. And you could sense this like confidence coming in, right? And that's a big part of what your journey needs. We're trying to get this thing figured out, and then someday we'll just feel better because we pray, God, take it away or make these thoughts go away. All those kind of prayers that don't really do a whole lot. It's more like, God, just encourage my heart, help me to just be reminded that you're with me, and I'm going to take this step of faith. We need to pray more prayers like that. But God, I'll just remember what is true and take the step. Because a lot of our prayers are alleviating the spiritual and emotional work we have to do. God, take this away. God, do a miracle. God, heal my brain. It's all magic prayers that alleviate us from doing the work that we need to do. OCD journey is a journey of work. It's not a striving, it's not an earning, but it's the work of the heart. It's like, okay, today I got to face this thing. It's giving me, I'm uncomfortable, anxious. I want to avoid, get me out of this. And I do it. And I have the conversation, or I step forward in the relationship, or you move to the next phase of getting premarital counseling, or you get engaged, or you work on exposure and you do the work and you're exhausted, but you keep working through it. That strengthens the fight or flight. Because I'm concerned in mental health that we're teaching people safety, safe spaces, safe things, being safe. And it's in my book material. It was in my book material before it became cultural. In my I Will Not Fear, when I talked about safety in God's love. But now the term safety has become just being in a bubble. And ROCDers, they're looking for that bubble of just like, I'm going to be safe in this. But it's a lot of avoidance. So they want God to tell them, give confirmation, this person's the person I'm going to marry. When no, getting married's a risk. Having any relationship is a risk. It's a step of faith. You have no guarantees of any relationship in this world, any human being that you have a relationship, you have no guarantees that it's just going to be perfect without any problems, without anything. You have zero. But we have this thing that it's just going to be, I'm going to have that feeling and I'm just going to be okay. And so the person writing to me, it's not turning off your fight or flight. Your fight or flight needs to be strengthened so the stuff that triggers you doesn't trigger you anymore. And that takes practice. When I moved here to North Carolina and I started seeing snakes, I was going into full-on anxiety. I had to learn over time when I saw it to not just go into that mode, but to just let myself watch. Okay, there's a snake, there's a snake, there's a snake. All right. All right, I'm noticing I'm feeling anxious, but I'm not reacting right now. I'm not going to run and hide. I just notice it because I'm no longer going to be afraid of it. I need to be sober because my goal is not to be like, whatever with the snake. And, it's, poisonous snake. And, but anyway, that's the journey. So for you though, you talk about your fight or flight response being hyperactive. And you said, here's my scenario. I've been dealing with this cycle for about 6 months as I overcame and broke some addictions in my life, basically pornography. Confessed to my wife that I was struggling and repented. However, now there is an irrational, at least I know it, an irrational fear of the opposite sex. This is a very, very common problem with ROCD and very, very common problem in general. This is so much of an issue for Christians. Christians are afraid of the opposite sex and the same sex. They're very uncomfortable. We're uncomfortable in the age of heightened awareness of sexuality. Guys are afraid to be connected to each other in emotional ways, thinking, oh, maybe this means I'm gay or you're being gay or whatever, and they kind of shrug it off. Then we don't know how to interact with someone of the opposite sex because many times people, they only know, am I attracted to this person or I'm not really interested, I'm not thinking about them. We don't think of like having those in between of this is somebody I work with or this is someone at church and I appreciate them as a brother and sister and I can be respectful. And we had a lot of conversations about this in my pastoring that like, hey, we got to learn, we're very goofy in how we relate to each other. It's like the only time we talk to the opposite sex is when we want to date. We don't know how to have just a healthy, respectable, just interaction or conversation. And for OCDers, it's very, very intense. And something that you'll need to be aware of. Now, however, the pornography addiction adds more fuel to this problem because pornography conditions your eyes and your triggering of arousal. And so if you see a beautiful woman, it triggers obsessive compulsiveness. Oh my goodness, maybe I'm in love with this woman, or maybe this means something, right? And it can also trigger sexual arousal too. And that pathway with pornography usage conditions that very, very intense emotion, very distorted scenario. So it also creates a lot of uncleanness too, a lot of sense of uncleanness. So now relating to a woman who's pretty feels very, very awkward. But Melissa and I have even talked about this. Seeing an attractive person, or let alone talking to somebody. You ever talk to somebody who's really attractive? Like you ever talk to somebody who's just really good looking? You kind of find yourself like, okay, wait, hold on, pay attention. What were they saying? There is an aspect of that too that we need to understand as a part of life. Whenever I see a woman, another woman with a good figure, my fight or flight response kicks in again, as if I'm doing something wrong. Correct. So you have an OCD fight or flight response. So set off in this is something wrong, and because of past pornography aspects too, there's an added element of shame. Of, oh my goodness, I don't want to go into that avenue where I'm fantasizing about this woman, all those kinds of things. And many OCDers then go into, if you look at a woman with lust, you've already committed adultery. I've talked about that subject in another video. You'll have to look that up. But they often dive right into that. So now they're standing there self-accused. And then what do you feel like you need to do? I need to confess this. And what you actually need is you need opportunities in life where attractive people cross your path. You get nervous and you don't feed the compulsion and you act normal as best as possible. You notice an attractive person, move on with life. Many OCDers will be married to somebody, they'll see somebody else as attractive. Oh my goodness, maybe this means I'm going to commit adultery, or whatever kind of scenario goes on. Maybe you're engaged. Oh my goodness. And at the last minute before the wedding, you see somebody, that's better looking. You're a woman and you see a guy that's handsome and you go, oh, maybe he was the one I was supposed to marry. You start having all these intrusive thoughts and all these intrusive interpretations. And what you actually need is you actually need moments like that to be your exposure therapy. And I'm going to give you advice a pastor wouldn't give you, but I'm going to give it to you, and it's very, very important, is that you need those kind of moments where you don't feed your compulsive behavior. And this is where people who don't understand this battleground give false advice. Or they'll tell you, well, you better just stay away from these places. You know, if your hand caused you to sin, cut it off. Well, you're cutting off the wrong thing. Because in this case, it's fear that needs to be cut off. And you cut off fear by facing it. Are you guys following me so far? Are you with me? Are you with me? Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you. Amen, brother.
Okay, just checking. So, you said compulsive, yes. And so you will be tempted to tell your wife, to confess it to her, that you thought somebody was attractive. And you got to realize this, and you got to keep practicing. Now, I'm not telling you go around and go, hey, you're good looking. I need to stand here and be around you. Okay. Just in case there's a black and white thinker out there going to apply it that way. But live your life normal. And in the day-to-day life, you're at a store, you're in the grocery store, you're at church, you're at work, and that attractive person walks by. You know, I've done sessions with many people who, at the counter, some kind of counter, right? You have customers coming in, and at the bank, or working at some kind of a mechanic and auto repair place, or working at the parts department, and an attractive person comes to the counter and places an order, and it's like, oh, all these thoughts, and then you go into this whole mode to fix it. Okay, anyways, let me get back to your question, because I got a lot of attraction. Everyone's, you know what? Let me do this. Let me play this video. Let me pull it up here, because I want to bring us back to something very, very simple as far as understanding when you see someone that is beautiful and attractive. I want to encourage my brothers and sisters, because there's such an internal restriction and fear coming over us. It is not sin to notice that somebody's good looking. And I don't think we have practice in just being able to see that for what it is. Our only reference is you see a person who's attractive, lust after them, have further thoughts, and oh my goodness, I'm going to act on this, I'm going to do something. And we think that that's the only playbook available to us. And I, for all my heart and all my conviction, would bet that if we were walking with Jesus and there was an attractive lady, he could notice it, moving on. Doesn't have to mean anything. And that's the ultimate goal, is that you be able to, no, that's a good looking lady, right? It's a good looking guy. And that's it. That's all it needs to mean. That's the ultimate place that you're practicing to get to. But I felt a feeling. Okay, so anyways, let me play this video. This was candid camera, done a long time ago. And it was a scenario where they took little kids in school, two girls that were in, elementary. It looks like the elementary kind of school. And a very, very handsome teacher comes into the room and just is giving some instructions. And the girls can't even keep a straight face. They can't keep it together. The boys, when they bring the beautiful teacher in, she comes in like they're dumbfounded. When she walks out of the room, like the kid, he can finally breathe. Watch this video with me, because I think we've lost perspective on just human attractiveness.
These girls were introduced to their handsome new teacher, and we got a chance to watch and listen after the fellow left the room.
I'd like to know whether girls would like to be in my class.
Look at her face. Look.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Will you all bear with me? Can you have patience just a second? Let me answer this. I'll be right back.
She doesn't know what to do with herself.
Please, I was looking at him. It's gonna be a play. You can turn this down. Tony, I never either. Like all the girls, like he's young too. He must be at least around 24.
And it's the same type of situation, except now boys are at the table, and they're going to meet their pretty new teacher, and here she is. And after she leaves, we'll see the reaction.
Hi. Huh. What's your name? Charles Burgoyne. Hi, nice to meet you. Joe Paul.
They can't, they're having trouble making eye contact.
I'm a new teacher in social studies. Class good? Yeah, so.
You're wanted on the phone, Miss Starling. Would you follow me, please?
Oh, would you wait here for me a couple of minutes? I'll be right back.
I didn't want to transfer when he mentioned it, but now I do.
Oh, would you wait here a couple of minutes, okay? Thank you.
Watch.
Oh, could you just wait a couple of minutes?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Holy mackerel.
Isn't that something? I think that we lose sight of we're Christians. We believe in purity. We believe in sexual purity. We live in a sexually crazed culture, which this isn't new. It's had its waves in all kinds of civilizations all throughout time, going back in history. And but we forget the human response to beauty. And for many that are perfectionists, you give no room to go, okay, so that person's attractive, and I found that person attractive, and that's okay. It doesn't have to mean anything else. But we are afraid of emotions that rise up. We're afraid of our thoughts. We're afraid because of the interpretation we give our thoughts. Now, another point I want to make too is that obviously these are kids in a scenario. They're like, whoa, you see the human response to beauty or to something that, brings awe, and many OCDers, they want to feel that feeling about the person that they marry all the time. So don't let that video then feed that mindset, which is like, oh, I should have to feel this kind of feeling that all the time. It's a reminder that throughout time in life, you bump into people, you see people that are just very good looking people. And they were blessed with those features. Anyway, so you say, you going back to your fight or flight kicks in when you see an attractive woman, you feel like you're doing something wrong. So you have a bit of that, kind of thing go on, and then it makes you afraid. And then many will say, well, if I stop being afraid of this, then maybe it's going to lead me to doing something evil. We go black and white on it. I should mention I've read, I've been able to tell myself I'm okay. I'm loved and have nothing to worry about when this happens. I should mention I've read the OCD Healing Journey and working through I Will Not Fear. My inner critic interpreter screams condemnation in the form of if a man looks on another woman as to lust. I've explained that. It's not as simple as a thought arriving. It's not as simple as a thought arriving. This is I know it's not just lust. There are attractive people. Doesn't mean I want to be with them. Also, I felt God telling me, my word isn't a weapon against you to bring condemnation, but freedom. Usually I may spin for a few minutes to an hour, then I'm able to sober up and see for what it is. So remember that. Remember that. It takes me a couple hours. I would tell myself that. I've been through this before. It took me a couple hours or a couple days or whatever, a couple weeks. I can do it again. The same thing I did before, I can do it again. The most recent experience is one that troubled, disturbed me. I was triggered by a younger female, a teenager, I'm sure, and now my narrative of attractive people exists, but it does not mesh, as this notion seemed to make me attracted to basically children. So that's where now the narrative goes. And this is where many people in their OCD, oh my goodness, did I just feel a feeling about somebody? And then they're really afraid, and this causes major avoidance. Okay. Not cool with that. Worth mentioning, maybe. Definitely oversharing. There are no real thoughts associated when these events occur. By the way, OCDers, let me remind you, there's no such thing as real thoughts and fake thoughts. There's no such thing as real thoughts and fake thoughts, just thoughts. Okay? Is this a legitimate thought, or is this a not legitimate thought? No, there's no thing of comparison. It's just thoughts. It's all just thoughts. There's no real emotions, fake emotions, just emotions. Just food for thought there. My thoughts scream something is wrong here. That's your fear. My counselor has discussed much of what you teach on. Just sitting with the feeling and seeing that you're okay. Right. Not feeding it. It's very hard for me to not argue the thoughts and fears away. That's your compulsion. How can I turn off the fight or flight response? What you say about my most recent experience and really any insight into my journey, we appreciate it. Every time it happens, you learn to not feed any response to it. If you're talking to somebody and you see a beautiful lady in the corner of your eye, and it all rises up, you just keep talking. Keep yourself focused, even though that thought is screaming there. You stand there, you're in the park and you're going for a walk or whatever. You see someone, that anxiety raises up. You do nothing to try to argue with it, to try to create a convincing statement. You let the fear go through. You do not need to combat that. If you want a Bible verse, get into Ephesians 6. When you've done all to stand. Most people, when they teach Ephesians 6, they're like, get your sword out, start swinging it, the word of God, get that out there. And this is what they do with their thoughts all day. This is what a lot of Christians look like. Mark, I don't know why I'm so tired, but I'm fighting spiritual warfare. What are you swinging at? The devil. Got my breastplate on, my armor, and fighting. There's, I believe, 3 times Paul uses this word. When you've done all to stand. Stand, therefore. So that's your verse when you're in exposure therapy. Just stand. You don't move. You don't fight the bully. You don't argue with the bully. You don't need to try to create some kind of dissertation, some type of response. I'm just standing through this. I'm not going to feed this fear. You'll feel afraid, but you're not going to feed it. Okay. Now, here's a woman who's writing into me who's got the same thing. And she says, I've been working through your materials on OCD. My specific struggle is relationship OCD. I was engaged and we called off the wedding a few months before because of the doubt I had, which eventually caused my now ex to have doubt too. Yeah. And I always look at too, whenever there's a wedding that's been, canceled, or they talk about cold feet. It's like, how much is OCD a part of these equations? Because it's in a lot of it. He's a wonderful man, patient, kind, loving, has a heart for God and for the lost. We share similar interests. There's many symptoms I deal with, but the main issue is attraction. Overall, I'm attracted to him, but it's like I take a magnifying glass out and hyperfixate on all the things I don't like about his appearance. So I badly want to make things work, but it's like there's this mental barrier I can't break through. Other relationship issues I feel would be easier for me to work through, but physical appearance, something that can't necessarily be improved, is harder. This area triggers you because you've been convinced that this area is harder. Whereas other people would say to me, my potential husband isn't as smart as me. And they feel like, oh, it would be easier if I was just spinning over, if I had a thought about his appearance. I don't have any problems with that. We always think that ours is the hardest one. Yours isn't the hardest one. It just feels hard because for you, it latched on, it hooked on for a variety of reasons. And you're going to need to actually sit with those thoughts of you looking at him and in that moment, not feeling this amazing, exuberant kind of attraction to him, and you're focusing on a flaw, and the flaw is giving you anxiety, and you don't feed it. You're going to have opportunities. You practice this, and redirect yourself towards appreciation. If you, because you have an issue with perfectionism, and perfectionism has a focus on flaws, and flaws are unacceptable. And so you ruminate over them, fixate on them, and then they become bigger and bigger and bigger. So now that flaw overtakes your vision. It's like something you feel like you can't unsee. You can renew it. But there's this, and I wrote this in the book. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave it in there or not, because I want people, I'm not sure if I'm still ironing out how to communicate it. But you have a series of core emotions. And one of the emotions that is an interesting emotion is the emotion of disgust. Disgust is I believe, a God-given emotion, because if you walk into a room, for example, and you smell poop, right? You go, ooh, something's off here. Your sense of smell creates disgust, right? You have some food and it smells rotten. Creates disgust. What's it meant to do? It's meant to cause you to withdraw because there's something here that's not safe, right? You walk in, you go, what stinks, And isn't it interesting how your sense of smell does not smell everything all the time. Your sense of smell picks up on something new, right? That's why you can have BO and you don't know because you're used to it. So your nose really only smells new scents. Then it goes into the background and you get used to it. But it's designed in a way, you walk into a room, there's a new smell. Or you walk into, like I remember when we were at, I forget what Disney park I was at. I'm like, everything just smells like cinnamon. And I had to be reminded, they're pumping that smell everywhere. Because they know what that does. Okay. Anyway, sorry for the tangent. But when you look at your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, when you look at that person and you're focused on a flaw and it creates anxiety, it can also create a emotion of disgust, which then causes you to withdraw, right? And now you're very confused because you're like, this is a person I'm in love with and I want to move towards. I actually think all couples could benefit from this because there's things about our spouse that bug us, irritate us, anger us, that causes a movement away where love gets withdrawn. I often teach that as a form of hatred. Or hatred's an interesting kind of manifestation because hatred is not necessarily like, I hate you. Hatred's often very quiet. It's more just like, I'm withdrawing love and moving away from. So that emotion of disgust triggers you and it overwhelms you and it hits your fight or flight response, just like you're walking into a room and you smell BO and you, whoa, what's this? Right. And then the other person's like, what smell? And you're like, okay, this is awkward. How do I tell this person this? Nothing. And then you like slide some deodorant to them and they're like, I don't use deodorant. It has aluminum in it. And you're like, okay, how do I have this? Alrighty then. Lost my place in where the even question was. Okay, you take a magnifying glass, you hyperfixate. That's it. I so badly want to make things work. Other relationship issues, you're like the physical appearance. This one's really hard. When something about his physical appearance bothers me, I have thoughts like, why would you settle? You don't like that thing about him and could find something better. That's perfectionism in action. Always Something got to be just right, but never enough. Got to go find more. Ladies and gentlemen, look at the prettiest and handsomest people on the planet. You'll find them in modeling agencies and in Hollywood. They're the most miserable relationship people. Okay, so finding beauty is not going to solve the ache of your heart. And but for a perfectionist, they need things to look good to feel good. They need things to look good to feel good, and they need to feel good in order to feel in love. So you're actually going to need to learn, those of you that have attraction, fussing, physical appearance fussing, you have to learn how to sit in the presence of flaw and not feed your overanalysis of it. It's going to take time. It's going to take practice. And learn to slowly redirect your attention towards appreciation of the features about them, both outwardly and inward, that you're grateful for. Because that slowly redirects your focus. Because every married person, great marriage, terrible marriage, awesome marriage, not so great marriage, every single one in the whole spectrum, they are aware of their spouse's flaws, physical, emotional, even spiritual, right? But a healthy pattern is those things get put into perspective. Anyway, so and then you say you're an idiot for settling. Okay, well, there's your hostile relationship with yourself. Got some self-hatred and shame going on there. You're setting yourself up for a miserable marriage, one where you'll have to lie to yourself and him forever. Woof. There's some black and white, all or nothing perfectionism right there. He deserves better. That's a good cop-out statement too. Like our OCDers have a cop-out statement. Maybe you should just find somebody better than me, because I'm a mess. Go. No, just go. It's a cop-out. And the other person needs to go, baloney. You don't love yourself. You hate yourself. And you got some goofy thoughts you're feeding. So make a decision. Snap out of it. Make a decision. Like I said, though, I want to make it work. My ex is you say you want to make it work, then you got to make a decision. You got to start moving forward and stop feeding these thoughts. The more you feed them, the more that they will grow and create this big this looming case. And those of you that you've been dating 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, you're 6, 7. You're developing a history now of building up this resume of fussing over the relationship. And so then if you've been dating for 5 years and you get engaged, yeah, it's going to feel overwhelming. You're going to feel a whole rush of fear and anxiousness. You get towards marriage because you've been building this fear-based obsession for a very long time. It doesn't mean you can't get through it. It just means you need to have perspective. You didn't get here overnight, so you're not going to get through it overnight. Like I said, I want to make it work. My ex is open to trying again too. I know you say that healing is a journey. I just don't know how to move forward towards marriage while also being on this journey. And I think you need to be sober that you called off the wedding. And you called off the wedding because of the influence of OCD. And so you step in, you go, I'm going to work on this, and I'm not playing with these thoughts anymore. And I'm going to heal and mature, and I'm going to face this. And I'm going to have a new tenacity. It's kind of like somebody who's maybe somebody who's done something to violate trust. It's like, yeah, I can't. I gotta really make a serious effort to work on myself now and go. I gotta step up. I know the OCD may never fully go away. We don't need to entertain that thought. Is it fully going to go away? Is it you're putting too much pressure? Just start walking the healing journey. I want confidence and excitement as I head towards marriage. You're not going to have it the way that you expect it right now. Okay? Let me just tell you that. You're not going to have the confidence and excitement that you're expecting to have. You're expecting to have the confidence and excitement that someone who doesn't have OCD has. That's what you're expecting. You're expecting you to have the same level of confidence of someone who doesn't have OCD. And that's unfair to yourself. Yeah, you can build confidence, you can build excitement, but you have to learn how to have excitement. And OCDers don't know how to have excitement. Let's just be honest. You don't know how to have fun. Let me get into some more. I think this one's got a thing for blondes. A couple of people here with the blondes. I don't know why that's the theme this time around. Not sure if I'm in denial about having partner. If some of you fell asleep and I just woke you up, Mark, your videos are so peaceful, except when you blast this horn. I will try to keep this as short as possible. Before I became a Christian, I used to go to the local malls and downtown areas in my city to cold approach and pick up girls for dates. My main goal with doing this back in the day was to gain the confidence to talk to women that were my type, which happens to be girls with blonde hair. When I first got saved, I told God, I will marry anyone you want me to, regardless of looks. Okay, you made an immature declaration to God. Okay, it's like, yeah, I get that, but like, we say a lot of things to God we don't necessarily mean. So anyway, 2 years ago, I met a girl who loves to evangelize, is gentle, loves the Lord. Okay, so what's the problem? Loves the Lord, but the main thing I keep getting hung up on was the fact that she has, get this, guys, okay? Is the fact that she has curly blonde hair rather than naturally straight blonde hair. Oh, what a red flag. I am joking. We ended up dating for only 2 months, and I broke it off because I was dealing with so much anxiety around physical attraction. This is a good example. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that have ROCD, this is where it goes. So if you heard this and you go, that's ridiculous. And worst case scenario, you just get a curling iron. It doesn't matter. When this thing is at work, it'll find another thing. It'll find another area. It'll find it in the next person that you date and that you're with. Yeah, you said you want, I told the Lord I would prefer to marry somebody who is blonde, skinny, and has a missionary heart. Okay, so you want Christian Barbie. The main 2 years ago, I met a girl who loves to evangelize, is gentle of the Lord, but the main thing I kept getting hung up on was the fact that she has curly blonde hair rather than straight. Now, oh, sorry, not a curling iron. You want straight. The curls bother you. We ended up dating for only 2 months, and I broke off because I was dealing with so much anxiety around physical attraction. Because she was such a great girl, and I've always had a deep desire to be married. I fasted during the time. It's a very common thing OCDers do. They love to fast. Not that they don't love it. They just love to get hooked by it. They're easily hooked by, I got to fast. I fasted during the time that we dated, asking God to change my heart to help me get over this curly versus straight hair dilemma so I could pursue her and love her with my whole heart. Yeah, God is not just going to change your heart and get over it. You have layers of things you have to work. God is not going to grab your brain and start plucking neurological connections out. Christians have a very dysfunctional view of God change my thinking. It's like, I need you to go in and I need you to be a puppet master and I need you to just take my thoughts and just rearrange them. And that's just not how God created us. We're asking him to do something that is actually part of our journey of cultivating how we relate to our thoughts. So you kind of look for something external. If I fast, which is a very common obsessive behavior, most fasting I watched in church life, including my own, most, not all, most was obsessive compulsive. I know that's a strong statement. I'm just telling you. Now, I know that's anecdotal. That's my own experience, what I've seen. That's not a fact of research or study. I'm just saying what I've observed. Most fasting was to try to fix, I don't feel close to God. I don't feel like God is hearing me and I need an answer to prayer or some kind of like dilemma thing that we're needing God to do. And then the rest were just trying to lose weight. They're feeling terrible about their weight, so they thought fasting would fix it. I'm just being honest. Ask God to change my heart, help me get over this curly straight hair dilemma so I could pursue her and love her with my whole heart. Now you make a decision to pursue her and love her with your whole heart. Because let's say that the puppet master God went into your brain and plucked out the blonde curly hair. Another one will show up. The reason the blonde curly one there is because that's getting the most attention. There are thousands of other flaws that could easily be picked up. You just happen to be responding to the one that has the most attention. We don't have a multitasking brain. Your brain can only really focus on one thing at a time. Try to think about 3 things at the same time. Go ahead, try it. Try to work on a math problem while considering your next work project, while also a conflict you have with your relationship. Go ahead. Try to think about them all at the same time. You can't. And so for the obsessor, they're very intensely fixated on a disturbance area. It controls their focus. So you try to fix this one. She goes, you know what, honey? I love you. I will just wear with a hair, what do you call it? A hair straightener? You know, the thing? What do you call it? Yes. You know what I'm talking about, that like straightening iron thing that does this. And my wife's got that, you know. If she was like, honey, I'll do that for you. All of a sudden you'd go, wait a second. Her nose isn't symmetrical. I'm telling you. I am telling you. I was experiencing intense anxiety, which caused physical tension, resulted in pain in my lower back and neck. I was thinking about this issue 24/7, day and night, prevented me from being present when I was with her. During these 2 months, I kept thinking about how before I was saved, I could approach any girl I was attracted to, and how I essentially learned how to date and pursue anyone I wanted to. Yeah, but now you're getting older, and now relationship is more meaningful. Back then, you could kind of meet someone. You could the stakes weren't higher as far as commitment. Now you're having to like mature at a bigger level to go, hey, I want to look at getting married. So of course you're going to have, now your battlegrounds are really rising up. Despite praying and fasting, the anxiety was not fading. Okay. And that's a common thing Christians have to understand, that there's things we have to learn to combat anxiety, because it's not just going to go away. You gotta develop tools and how to work through it, how to face it. It's like having relationship conflict, and every time you have a conflict, you pray, God, make the conflict go away. Any sane person would go, you're gonna have to figure out how to work this out. But we go, don't pray for the conflict to go away. Same thing with anxiety. You got to learn how to work through it. So I decided to end the relationship in the belief that I could find myself. I could go find someone else that meets my preferences. Yeah. Fast forward to today, 2 years later. Okay. And I'm still finding myself thinking about her from time to time. Yeah, because she sounds like a great person, great heart, and she's blonde. She just has curly blonde hair. I find myself, I have listened to your videos talking about relationship OCD. I purchased your book, and I wanted to ask you if you could provide examples. This is you're definitely an OCDer. If you could provide examples of the people you've worked with in the past on page 314, paragraph 3, where you've wrote, I counseled plenty of those who were in OCD spirals of picking apart the attractiveness of their spouse's appearance. Yes, a particular flaw or physical uniqueness takes center stage to the point they can't rest in their marriage. Many perfectionist-driven OCDers need, quote, their spouse to be a certain standard of appearance or behavior in order to feel okay. Would you give, if any, when you tried to tell them this was relationship OCD and not they needed to find someone, a more attractive partner? All the time. All the time. All the time. I told many, many people, if you keep living this way, you're never going to be married. I had to give that strong word. And I know that's, some people are like, oh, that's harsh, but people had to tell me that. And it's true. They stayed single, and not because I'm some wizard. It's just this pattern, because intimate relationships involve vulnerability, and vulnerability has flaws. We have strongholds, sins, battles, things in our generations, family ties, family goofiness, family dysfunction, all that stuff comes in. And so every kind, you name it, when it comes to examples of married people, engaged people, dating. Every kind of flaw you could think of. Too tall, too short. Eyes are a little bit weird. Nose is a little strange. Blotch on skin. I can now add to it curly blonde, straight blonde hair. I could also include it how flip-flops look on their feet, certain things in their toes. Remember Shallow Hal? He was focused in on that one toe that was a bit longer. She looks too old. His hair's receding. You name it. Being too heavy, overweight, being too skinny. How many more examples do you need? It doesn't matter though. And that's why I can tell you, you're still fixated on this. You haven't seen that, hey, I got bigger things I need to deal with here and to work through, as far as it's not just about this. You're still wrestling with, is this relationship OCD? And so, okay, so I think you're at the end of this, but through your work, I was able to realize I was dealing with scrupulosity. This led me to a lot of freedom and relief, which is great. I struggle with the idea of whether or not I have relationship partner focus OCD. Oh, you definitely do, bro. You definitely do, with an extra dose of definitely. I'm not sure if I'm in denial, but here's the thing. It's going to take as long as it takes for you to realize that. I pray for people that they'll catch it early enough so that they stop doing the same cycles and patterns. I'm grateful I was able to catch it early enough, because I would have been, as many were saying, you'll be 70 and alone or 65 and alone. And that would have been true had I not made some major changes. Where I'm living today is very, very different from the path I was on, because I had to change how I related to my thoughts and how I related to these emotions. I had a lot of growing up to do. And it's okay. We all do. A lot of people in my life say that I am being too picky. Yeah. And you need to recognize that. Don't just brush it off. But the nature of OCD is it's very stubborn. I just keep struggling with accepting if it's true or not, because of how I used to approach women back in the day. So you're kind of living in like a fantasy land of the past. Like, hey, I used to go to the mall and talk to chicks, and yeah, it was awesome. It was great. It was fun. So I want to bring you into reality, and you're in a place where it's time to heal. It's time to mature in how you relate to love. But only you can make that decision. I could tell you this, and I won't try to convince you, because when I do that, you can waste your energy. I'll tell you what I see, but you're gonna have to see it for yourself. I got another one here, I think is a lot of attraction stuff today, but I'll just read it for the sake of reading it. Hi, Mark. Thanks for your videos. They've been a huge blessing to me. Question regarding relationship OCD. I've been dating a wonderful girl for the past 5 months. We have the same values, beliefs, similar interests, and very similar life goals. I have a feeling the yabbut's going to be coming up here soon. Yeah. However, there it is. As I am watching as relationship OCD continues to reveal itself in many areas of my mind as I continue in the relationship and commitment starts to rise. Since the beginning, I've faced the classic questions, doubts of whether I'm attracted enough to her. As I expected, I would sense this first bout with ROCD. Initially, I was concerned because she is a brunette, and I've primarily been attracted to blondes. Here we go. I've decided that was probably ROCD and perfectionism at play. Can we be honest, though? It's also a shallow metric for choosing a mate. Can we just be honest about that without going into shame? Like, let's just put OCD aside for a second. If that becomes a focused subject, it is a immature level of the spouse that we choose. Like, you have your preferences and your things. Those are not like, there's deeper things that need to be built that bring the bond together. I decided that was probably ROCD and perfectionism at play, but nowadays I get triggered whenever I see a blonde or another attractive female, to the point where I question the whole relationship I'm in. And so that's your compulsion. Your compulsion is you start to fuss and question over your relationship. So you have to you see an attractive person when you're out in life doing your thing and everyday life, and you see somebody where you don't do that. You don't feed the questioning of your relationship. You feel the anxiety, you feel the discomfort, and you don't feed it, and you gently redirect yourself back to just being present in your relationship and practicing that. Am I just setting myself up for a higher risk of infidelity, since blonde people seems to be a preference? Then that means your future. Let me just follow this thought for a second. Then that means your future marriage in any direction, whoever you choose, will always be on thin ice. Because that tells me that the smallest thing of attraction will pull you away from this. Okay, but let's put that aside, because that's not the problem here. You're catastrophizing this scenario. I know sometimes I go down people's tangents, but it doesn't matter. That's an obsessive, catastrophic tangent. Am I just setting myself up for a higher? It is perfectionism, textbook perfectionism. And those triggers will fade as I practice ERP to attractive people. Yeah, the anxiety will fade so you manage seeing an attractive person. And I think all men and women need to learn how to go, oh, that person's good looking, or I think that person's attractive. Or maybe you're in church and the pastor preaches a great message and a lady's like, oh, I think he's handsome. And that's all it is. Because attraction comes about in a lot of different ways. Somebody could be like not so, amazing looking, but they have great character, and that draws you. Men can have that towards women. Women can have that towards men, where like they're a 6 in good looks, but they're like a 9, you know what I mean? In like integrity or speaking or confidence, and it makes them more attractive. You go, oh, that's it. It doesn't have to mean anything else. I think everyone could benefit from practicing that in a healthy way. Furthermore, I've dealt with the patterns of attraction to other specific girls in the past. It was another girl who I'd considered dating. I would research a way to confirm the girl I'm currently dating was the right one. What do you do? Like, how do you know you're dating the right one? Is that the search? This worked for the first three or so girls, but then I realized it was compulsive, so I cut it out. By now, my mind has gotten stuck on wondering if one of these 2 other specific girls would be a better fit, as my mind has been terrified of getting to know those girls further. Yeah, and that fear is a fear of intimacy. It's a fear of deeper connection. So it's like, let me make sure she's perfect, so then I'm okay to go in. But she's flawed, and it's really about your own discomfort with love. All this ROCD stuff goes back to a discomfort with love, being uncomfortable with love. Receiving love is uncomfortable. Giving love is uncomfortable. Intimately love, not performing from a stage or blessing the homeless or praying for people, someone that you're vulnerable with, where there's commitment involved, where they know you. That's scary. It's frightening, terrifying. My mind has gotten hypersensitive to anything my girlfriend says that isn't 100% correct or kind or sensitive to others. I know this is likely perfectionism. It's not likely. It is. And would show up again in a new relationship. Yep. But my mind just screams break up, even though based on my family members, they have no real concerns of those triggers and are often very reassuring that the relationship is a good fit. You got to stop asking your family too. That's a form of reassurance seeking. It's exhausting. I get headaches from the obsessions and fixations. For the most part, these obsessions are present when away from her. Occasionally while with her, my mind will just wander while looking at her. Yeah, this is all compulsive activity based on fear. Yep. How do I discern if the current relationship is right? You might as well put just right. And there you go. You're a perfectionist. Or am I settling for someone who I don't actually love enough? And that's all perfectionistic language. I'm settling. And they portray that in the movies. You didn't get that from life. You got that from the portrayal of cultural movies. Don't settle. Don't settle. It came out of movies and popular culture. And then it came out of people being soul tied to very abusive people. Very, very, people's lives were going nowhere, but they were dysfunctionally tied. So the saying came out of it, don't settle. OCDers have latched onto that. It's not what's at work here. Let me take a dance break. I'm gonna take super chats. I think I've done enough in dealing with the attraction subject, so we'll move on. I'll continue with some ROCD related questions. There was a super chat. It's not related to today's content, but I'll address it. Lori, hello, Lori. Good to see you. You wrote some people say memories will bring you joy. Yeah, but that doesn't, not necessarily. Beautiful memories, especially the loss of my mother, are deeply painful because those times are over and gone forever. Oh, I got you. So you had good memories with your mother, but now that she's gone, they become painful. It's a sign of grieving. You said, how do I change my perspective? It's not about, I wouldn't try to change your perspective. Let your perspective just get renewed as you're being loving and kind to yourself, because the loss taints, it like has a, can kind of create a darker lens over the good memories. And that's a sign of grieving. Grieving's still happening. So let the grieving happen. You know, like the Bible says, weeping lasts for a night, but joy comes in the morning. That's not 24 hours. It's not like you just go to bed and wake up. Some things in life you can, you know, just sleep it off and wake up. But grieving's a season. And it sounds like you're in the midst of it too. So that's a big part of renewing those areas. All right, let me get into some more questions. I'll try to move through some of these briefly because I got a bunch here. I'm going to try to give you some feedback. I know this is a very familiar topic within your channel. I want to say that me and my boyfriend have been together for 2 years now. We've had many issues in the beginning of our relationship. I used to go to church where he currently is attending right now, but I was lost, and it led to me and him having sexual sin. Now, due to the consequences, we haven't seen each other much, but we kept the relationship secret. So what were the consequences? When you say the consequences, probably the guilt and shame. Our families disagree in a lot of things about the relations, mostly because of the mistakes we made, and because if we get married, I might have to face the challenge of being a part of his family, who's mostly narcissistic and emotionally challenging to be with. We have tried to sneak out to go on a date once during 2023 and 2024. Most of the ways we connect and communicate is online chats or calls. I care and love this man so much, but the fear of God disapproving it disturbs me more. You're throwing the God label on this. Okay. I know that people say that we have the free will to choose our spouse. Yeah, you do. But there are also times when I wonder if the Lord is telling me to break up and focus on him only. Yeah, that's a common OCD thing that's used. In fact, I feel like that's a common cop-out that Christians use. It's another cliche that we use. I need to step out of this to focus on God only. What does that mean? There is no focusing on God only in life. It's a thing. I like to cut through the BS cliches that we say a lot. Christians say a lot of stuff. Like, what does it mean to focus on God only? Okay, it's me, God. Someone walks in. I'm focusing on God only. No, don't talk to me. It's only me and Jesus right now. No, it's a cop-out. It's a way of like not dealing with life and people. No, it's me. It's never just me and God. It's me, God, and you. Yeah. And we have to deal with that. So, but we spiritualize, and I'm telling you, I was a professional judo level, samurai level, Jedi level, super spiritualizer of where I was at. So you got to understand this. So I call it out very, very easily because I had that, and I needed some people to kind of go, hey, I don't know that I buy that. So I see in your email you like jumping to these God things when really you're in some turmoil. You have this secretive relationship. My thing is like, you're going to date. If you got goofy families that have all kinds of issues, make a decision. Hey, I love you and I want to work through this. You want to work on yourself? Are you working on yourself? Two people working on themselves, they can come from all kinds of goofiness and they can have a great relationship. It's more on the work you're doing rather than what you come from. Now, do I want my daughter to pick someone who comes from a decent family? Yes. But it's like, how much of that is going to be nitpicked through? Right? You can kind of hope for that, but it's more about the decision you make that you're willing to work on things. Eyes wide open. Now it's like, oh, we're not going to have any problems. Like, no, we got some problems. We got some issues. We're going to love each other and we're going to work on it through. Make a decision to do that. Come out into the light. So you slept with each other. Receive God's forgiveness and, repent of it, which you probably already have. Now move forward. Lesson learned. You talk a lot in text and in chats and calls. It's a great way to communicate so the sexual temptation's not as much. And make a decision. Where are we going? You've been together for 2 years. So, I think that's more than plenty time to. But you go into more spiritualizing of this. And I think it's just a grand distraction. You say, there are times when I wonder if the Lord is telling me to break up and focus on him only. Most of the time I know that delayed obedience is disobedience. It's another phrase. I actually hadn't heard it that way. I heard partial obedience is disobedience. That was another thing that we made up. I get where they're coming from in it. They use Old Testament passages. Saul was given a command to do something in a certain way. He didn't do it in the way he was instructed, and it was disobedience. So then we put in the phrase, and we start using that over and over again. I get what people are saying, but when they say partial obedience is disobedience, but it's applied in very dysfunctional ways. First of all, it creates this black and white pressure. But it's based on It's based on when obedience was said in the Old Testament, it was clear the Lord was bringing a word. Today, what we're doing is somebody had a thought. The Lord told me to sell my car and everything I had. I only sold one car. I'm in disobedience because it's partial obedience. Wait, I don't know that that's what God told you. You see in the Bible said, and the Lord came to him and said, or the prophet said, there was no debate that God was speaking. We have to back it up a little bit, all right? And with ROCDers, anything that's intrusive, they attribute to God. It's a dangerous road to go on. So anyway, and then it becomes this arbitrary thing we slap onto everything. Partial obedience is disobedience. It's used a lot in the offering. Used a lot in offering. Gets a big offering. Give this amount. Give it all. Because partial obedience is serve. It's giving and serving. Gets people serving. Because we don't have enough volunteers in church. So we got to manipulate them. So that obedience one's a good one. Good one. And just ratchet that one. People react that way. It's good manipulation. Anyways, it's hard because I'm aware that the Christian walk is filled with obedience and sacrifice for the Lord. You're distorted about obedience and sacrifice. You see it as something, I got to do something to create this sacrifice. I got to fight. I got to give up this thing. I got to give up to now you're happy with me, God. A lot of teaching is based on that today. It's hard because I'm always, so what do I do now? Knowing that the judgments of our families are misguided, you can't make your decision based on your whole family approving. Now, if your families are going, hey, these are major, major issues, then you go, okay, he comes from a narcissist. Okay, is he working on narcissism? Is he working on healing from parents who are narcissists? Because that takes work. That takes intentionality. If he's doing that, you can still work through that, but you can't base the entire decision on what your family's saying. Anyways, that's the best feedback I can get without knowing more details. This one's about dating a non-Christian. Hey, Mark, been watching your videos and watched the ones on sex and things. Sex and things? I'm in a relationship. My boyfriend's a non-Christian, but believes in God. I don't know what that means. He's not a Christian, but believes in God? Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? I heard God doesn't want me to be with him because of the equally unyoked thing. Unequally yoked, so I think you mean. And how premarital is bad. I think you mean premarital sex. I think y'all need to sometimes proofread these before you send it in. Because I find my mind like having to edit as I'm reading. And if we get married, God is not going to bless our marriage because we're unequally yoked. This being said, this is the best relationship I've ever had. I've been through abuse and grooming, and this man feeds me, takes care of me, is the sweetest person, and like now I have to give it all up. Okay, you're kind of boxing me into, like you're stacking on all these things in your situation and then like pushing me into a corner about the decision of what you're supposed to do. But I will say this, and it's in my book coming out this year, is that when it comes to relationships, getting married, I will say, yes, one person being a Christian, one person not being, not a good idea. It's not a good idea. You're setting yourself up. I've counseled just way too many people, especially women who thought they could save their husbands. And they were like, but I'll change him. And now they're 10 years in, she's miserable and she's angry and she wants to punch him. She's mad. And it's like, this is what you got into. And you just wanted him to change. And it's very important that when a couple gets married, that they're on the same page. And that's where premarital counseling can help with that. But you've put yourself in a situation that's not a good situation. Yes, it is unequally yoked. Here's the issue that I want to point out, though. It's very, very common that when let me just talk about, I've seen this in women. A woman will get out of a relationship with a man who's abusive or an addict, and she'll swing out of that. When she gets out of that, she'll swing to another like spectrum and kind of not walk into the next relationship sober. She's like, oh, he's safe because he's just not. And many times they'll marry or they'll get together with a very passive guy. It's like, well, at least he wasn't that drama before, right? So you're making comparisons coming out of something that was dangerous, and now you're stepping into another problem. So you said this is the best relationship you've ever had. I'm not really going to travel with that statement. This is a better relationship. He's kinder to you. It doesn't mean it's the best relationship that you could, that you can have. We make these magnanimous statements. Now I have to give it all up. Yeah, because you're living with the guy too. So this is always interesting. You're with somebody who's not a Christian. You're living with him. So you've already made all these decisions. And now you're coming with a question. It doesn't put me or anyone else in a fair position because there's not a miracle answer to this. So then any feedback of you need to do something different. It's like, well, do I have to give everything up? It creates this stacked scenario. It's like, no. You made decisions leading up to this that you're now in. And so, yeah, there's going to be some, if you want to long-term live healthy, you have tough decisions ahead of you. Yes. It's a part of life. I've had to make tough decisions my whole journey of how I'm going to walk and live healthy. And I do not encourage someone who's dating someone who's not a Christian to move forward in it. That is somewhere where I can be pretty clear and even call it black and white, where I can be very emphatic about it. You say, I have no car, no house. I don't have stable income because I'm mentally not well. I have some physical problems as well. I feel like I'm going crazy. My OCD is spiraling. I can't sleep at night. I'm such a mess. Wait a second. I thought you were in the best relationship. I love him. We have a home and 3 beautiful cats, a good relationship. We never get into fights. I talked to him about it. He doesn't really believe in purity. He's just not all in the faith. I talked to my parents about it, and they said, love is love. Oh, that's great advice. No, love is not love. That's backwards thinking. That's not a definition. Saying love is not a definition. That's like saying truth is truth. Paper is paper. Human is human. Glasses is glasses. That's not a statement. It's a sign of confusion, and the world operates in confusion. What they mean is you can love whoever, whatever you want. So these are all showing signs of not good input. And now here's the thing. Multiple things can exist at the same time. You can have relationship OCD and be in a relationship that is not a good relationship. Now that triggers a bunch of people. Oh my goodness, maybe my thoughts are right. No. You're getting feedback of concern. And you said, I talked to my parents about it. They say love is love, but you get to talk about your church and they're giving you feedback. They're finally happy I found someone that isn't abusive. Like that's not a metric of happy for your relationship. Hey, I'm happy someone isn't beating you right now. Okay, that's good. But that's not a just open thing to just go, whatever else is there is going to be, you'll be great. So you say, then my old church said I needed to leave and that God will provide for me. I kind of lean towards what they're saying. It's not that simple. It's not you leave and you're going to have an envelope of a stack of cash in your mailbox the next day. It's just like you kind of have to go, what do I want to live for? And it's interesting, this question's in the midst of, ROCD questions. But there's aspects to where this is, you've been in some clearly toxic relationships and you found a safe landing with somebody who's kind to you, but is not a believer. So here's what I want to tell you. If you move forward in this relationship, continue in it, get married, don't expect results that 2 believing Christians getting married will have. In 10 years, don't be mad at God or at people or life that you're not experiencing the fruit that 2 Christians working on their marriage together. that they gained the blessing they gave. Don't be mad that you don't have that 10 years from now, because you're making a decision. You had some bad relationship decisions. Don't stack onto it more bad decisions. I'm going through psychiatric medical withdrawal, and everything is strung out. I feel like I'm losing everything I worked for. I can't even seem to watch TV or play games or do anything without this insane guilt. I'm trapped. I just want to be happy. I just, this sentence has typos in it, so I'm not sure. I think you're saying I need my boyfriend to convert and everything will be okay. I love him so much. He's done everything for me. If you could please reach out or do a topic. Yeah, you can't make your boyfriend, you can't make him come to Christ. And don't go, I need you to come to Christ so that I'll stay with you. That's not going to work either. Then he's just gonna play to you. So you have some decisions to make, and only you can make them. Okay, let me get into another ROCD kind of question. How do you work through the feelings of inevitability? Inevitability. This sounds like it's going to go superstitious. With so much of my OCD theme, I can point to past experiences or failures which seem to confirm the thoughts aren't actually thoughts, have real weight or truth to them. Here's another one. There's no such thing, folks, as real thoughts or fake thoughts or legitimate thoughts or illegitimate thoughts. They're just thoughts. All thoughts are just thoughts. All emotions are just emotions. There's no such thing as differentiating. Now, what happens is you had some thoughts that then you saw some things happen and it created a connection. See, those thoughts were predicting my future. That's superstitious. That's what that is. For example, this is what I'm currently struggling with. When I was dating someone, I had thoughts about liking someone else. Me and my boyfriend broke up for good reasons, and years later, I'm now dating the man I was having thoughts about. So you created a superstitious connection. That happened because you had that thought. And so now that follows you, and that creates more superstition. I find myself having thoughts about another guy that I had somewhat of interest in before dating my current boyfriend. I love my current boyfriend very much, have no desire to break up with him or be with the other guy, but because of my past experiences, it feels inevitable. And that's creating a dangerous cycle, because then you're going to get with him, and then you're going to have that thought about somebody else, and then you're going to have that thought about somebody else, and you're going to be pulled by your emotions. Is this OCD making it seem that way, or is there truth to my thoughts? No, it's not. You're not following truth. You're following emotional cycles that of being pulled by thoughts of somebody that you get feelings that rise up, and then you chase them down. Do I have ROCD, or am I hiding from the truth? I've been dating this guy for only a few weeks. He's a great guy, but I really don't feel a spark. It's devastating. It's devastating? Okay. Let's just bring devastating down just a little bit. You just started dating. Now, you wrote this to me a while ago, so I'm curious to where you are now. I don't know if I just want to end things because I don't want to accept that it's a no, because I really want to be married. It's been awful. You got a lot of pressure on this. You got to back the pressure down. I don't want to eat or work or do anything. It's crippling. I don't see any resources on how to tell the difference between real emotions or ROCD. Yeah, because there is no resource on it, because there is no difference. Emotions are emotions. Now, I can tell you what influences OCD, and you've got it. I don't feel the feelings I want to feel. Hello, I have a really hard time with statements like, you're my favorite person, or I can't live without you. When I hear these things, I don't think I feel them about my boyfriend, but should I? Yeah, you believe you should have this high standard, that you should feel this intense thing, like, I could never live without you. You're the only one for me. That you hear about in the songs. My boyfriend is so sweet. I think I do love him and want to be with him, but I don't feel like I could say those strong statements back to him, because you feel like you have to fully mean them. Like in an intense, you have to feel that feeling so intense in order to say them. And so that's gonna create problems, because you'll need to feel just right in order to share something. I'm very afraid that he loves me more than I love him. Why is that even brought to the surface as a thing? comparing who loves who more. I'm afraid that he loves me more than I love him, but I'm not sure how to measure it. You get a tape measure it. When he says, I love you, go, wait, hold on. How big was that? And measure it with the measuring tape. And then you say it back to him and you go, wait, how big do I think that is? I'm kidding. All these thoughts keep me from actually receiving the compliments. Thank you for answering my previous question in your last episode on ROCD as blessed since purchased your book. Yeah, you're following a compulsive trail on that. Let's talk about, for a moment, red flags. I'll go a little bit longer here. I got a few more, and then I'll wrap things up. I wrote a question in a while ago about some background on my relationship, but we've been together for 3 years, and for a little over a year, I've been experiencing relationship anxiety and OCD tendencies. I found an Instagram account of a girl who struggled with those things, and she posts a lot of content about her freedom and healing journey. A post I really benefited from spoke on true dating red flags. Yeah, I don't know that that's helpful for OCDers. But let me hear what this person had to say. And they were, the true red flags were continued and unrepentant sins, no signs of the fruit of the Spirit, in other words, poor character, and all abuse. Wait, wouldn't that be red flags for anything in life? A business relationship, a friendship, a church relationship, a person you date? Wouldn't that be any red flags in any relationship? I can't think of a relationship avenue where someone who is continued and unrepentant in sin, okay, that's, the Bible warns about that. No signs of the fruit of the Spirit, the Bible warns about that. And abusiveness, okay, we're talking about a whole, yeah, that would be a flag in any kind of relationship, not just romance. I benefited from this post, however, I fixate on my fiance's character. And if since I see a lack of patience or gentleness, sometimes that means he has poor character. Well, you have impatience and you're not always gentle. So that means you have poor character. That's black and white. Black and white on this. I feel as though I'm struggling with perfectionism, but my brain is trying to convince me that it isn't. Yes, that's what it does. That's what this does. And that I've truly seen a pattern of poor character and I should be weary of. How do you discern whether or not it's really perfectionism we're dealing with, or maybe there's something I didn't notice until the past year? Also, for context, we did long distance on and off for our first 2 years of dating, and once he graduated, we transferred into full long distance where the anxiety started, but also where we got engaged. I also feel immense peace about him and marrying him during our first 2 years, but it's when long distance started that everything started coming up. Well, chasing why is all that happening is not going to help you. You struggle with perfectionism. So that means people say, I have OCD. How do I know it's OCD and not something real? They create these separations. If you have OCD, it will get into everything. Now, I know that you say, I don't have that theme. It doesn't matter. It could still infiltrate it. So you have to be aware of where anxiety and guilt rise up and recognize what you're focusing on and the interpretation you give things. And realize where you put pressure, where you fixate on things. That so for example, your discernment's off, that you see moments of impatience, like, good grief, then if that's the case, I don't have good character. I was just impatient yesterday about something. So you're micro-examining. Character is viewed over the long period of time. You don't go like this. How's the character? How's the character? I can't judge someone's character in a micro moment. Now, if there's an explosion or something, I go, okay, this is a major issue. But you can't examine character. That's why the Bible, when it says don't lay hands on someone suddenly, meaning like ordaining them and so forth, they need time to show character. It's got to be over months and years, right? Now in dating, I'm not saying you got to wait years and years. You spend that time together, and you over time you start to discover what the person's really like. Some of these are too long, by the way. Like sometimes I entertain them, but it's they get to be too long. This one here. Let me do one more dance break, and then I'll consider what I'll cover last, and then I'm going to close. I'll address this one here on confusion and breaking up, and maybe there's a couple points here I can pick out in the process. Do me a favor though, get a copy of the OCD Healing Journey, because that's gonna help you to start navigating and walking through the steps needed in understanding this battleground. The question goes into a number. There's a number, like you numbered out the questions here. You say, hey, Mark, I broke up with my first boyfriend over a year ago, struggling with ROCD throughout the relationship. I sought therapy, which has helped, but I'm still working on managing it. While I'm grieving the loss of someone who genuinely loved me and who was a good person, I also feel doubt and a pull towards getting back together, which is common. However, I want to avoid making any impulsive decisions. Now, you write that, and then you list out the questions. And to me, you say, I want to avoid making any impulsive decisions. I think, though, because you're an OCD or you have perfectionism at work, you want to make the perfect decisions in the perfect way and have things go out perfectly. I know you will say, no, I don't. But that's an influence here. Because you say, let me list out the questions you wrote. Will I ever feel ready to date again, or I just go for it? That's a perfectionistically infused question. So I got to feel just ready, as though there's a place where you go, I'm ready to date, And you might have that feeling. You may not. You may just meet someone and start to develop a connection. Number 2, you said, even though I ended things, I still love him and feel torn. Should I take more time before dating again? let me respond to your question differently, because I get set up with questions that are based on distortions. Because I still love him. And you're like, what's the timeline here? You want this you want this rule. And should I take more? It's about, if you get back into this relationship, you got to make a decision. I'm going to be sober. I got work to do. What does a healthy getting back together look like? There's like a healthy getting back together. If you do get back together, it's, hey, I was wrong in what I did. And I've got some major issues that I'm working through. And a big part of it is OCD. And I'm working through it, and I want to work through it. I'd like a chance at working at it. So a healthy getting back together, I don't know that that's a thing, but a healthier step is, if getting back together, being sober about, I got stuff I got to work on. Number 4, did I make the wrong decision breaking up with such a good guy, or am I being unrealistic about my needs? That decision's going to, that question's going to go like this. It's just going to keep looping. That's a question that goes nowhere. And that's, what obsessors do. They ask questions that lead to nowhere. The breakup wasn't mutual. He wanted to get back together, even suggesting couples therapy. While part of me was hopeful about the future with him, I had significant insecurities in the relationship. We talked about marriage, and while ROCD made it difficult to feel sure about him, I told him that I was ready to take the leap. A few weeks later, he said that he was ready, but that there were a few things he was concerned about as far as compatibility. This confused and devastated me because I had thought he was ready, but then he had seemed to have all of a sudden changed his mind. I blamed his sudden insecurity on me, on my ROCD compulsions, for not getting a grip on the feelings I have surrounding other attractive guys. I learned that I had just misunderstood him in the first place, that he was never ready, but wanted to plan a future in case he was ready. While this didn't quite make sense to me, I went along with it. I tried to compromise on what he wanted, things he really cared about, and I continued to blame his insecurity on me. It does seem to me, I wonder, this is something I wonder, if you both have obsessive compulsive tendencies. That's what I wonder. And now I'm reflecting on whether or not I made the right choice. You're kind of focused on because OCD has so much perfectionism, you're heavily focused on the right thing. And the truth is, there's many people in life, if you took a whole span of your journey, there's many people you could technically choose and marry that could be good choices. You're like, am I make the right choice? Meaning your journey is based on picking the right person. Your success in your marriage is based on picking the right person. And what I focus on is just growing and being a better person in your character and development, working through your issues in life. And OCDers are looking outside of themselves. I'm looking outside of myself to find something that's going to fulfill me. Many people do that in general. This person's going to save me, help me. It's like, no. I need to keep working at it. And then another roadblock is, okay, I got to work on this stuff before I get into a relationship. And you're working on yourself is best done in relationship, because that's where the friction and stuff and things happen. And you got to work on things, work on how you respond, and work on how you deal with love, and practice giving and receiving love. Many Christians have been mistaught that you just be just you and God. Now, sometimes they gave that advice because people were so caught up and obsessive over their relationship. Like, just take a break and just do you and God for a little bit. I get what they're saying. But the true work is done in the context of relationship. So even if you're single and you're longing for marriage and you're not wanting to force it, you're not wanting to be obsessive, develop a lot of interactions. Find groups and areas you can serve and get to know people. Single people have a blessing of time on their hands that married people don't. Single people, you are blessed. You have a blessing. In fact, the Apostle Paul himself said he wished everyone was in that state. So most single people today see their single state as a liability, and it's a lie. You actually have more freedom to make decisions, to make changes, to move in new directions, to serve people more. Many of you are blessed by the ministry that I do. But those of you who are single, you have more time than I do to actually minister and help people. You have more time than I do to actually go out and explore new opportunities. You have, and neither one of us is wrong or sinful, but there's advantages to both. And my encouragement to single people is don't see your singleness as a liability, as an asset. But find relationship avenues. Get creative if you have to. If it's not happening at your church, find another one. Or maybe you got a home church, but you find another one that you relate. Don't let. One of the things that I did was I let my church work box me into this little bubble. I had this church Assembly of God church bubble that I was in. And when I left that and went on the direction I went, one of the first things I picked up within months, wow, there's a big God out there. A lot of things God's doing, a lot of great people out there. And don't let yourself get by. I don't know anybody. I don't know. I got this going on. Find where, and if something doesn't work out, keep being resilient in that and see what God does, because we grow in relationships. So it's good stuff today. I got through a lot of material here. I got quite a stack here I went through, and I hope you had a little bit of fun. I hope that you were challenged and exhorted, all things in compassionate grace, to grow in your journey. Be sure to get a copy of the book. If you want to support these broadcasts, you can do so at markdesus.com. Click on the donate button. No pressure to do that. I do have a healing and freedom community that I've developed. If people want to make a deeper investment in that, we have weekly Q&As. In fact, we have one tomorrow, 90-minute Zoom gathering where I'll just interact with everyone and deal with questions and just connect. It's great. Fantastic. It's great to be with you all here, and Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Your brother from another mother saying I'll be back with more insights for your healing and freedom journey. Stay tuned for Sunday Live. We'll be back. And in the meantime, I'm out.